Hello. So, what do you guys think when you are crossing the border? Is that pretty automatic? I think it's really ingrained in us now to automatically have discomfort, some kind of fear, some kind of something horrible is going to happen kind of thing, right? So yes, I am Tien Neo Eamas. I am trans. I am the first Asian trans man to come out in Vancouver in 2002. And so as a result, I'm very used to having pulled over at the border. Whether it's because I'm Asian, or maybe it's because I'm queer, because years ago, when I was female, I was a hardcore leather, bull dyke, bald, scary-looking chick, right? So I always got pulled over at the border. You've worked in this bar long enough, you've seen some of those. So in 2001, the racialization of people of color at the border, especially after 9/11, was very, very obvious. I remember there was once I was traveling with my white girlfriend at that point, and I was pulled aside into the line that was all people of color, and then the line over here was all white people, and of course there's a line which is like, no idea what the fuck you are, so we'll put you over here. So over the years, I don't worry about the border anymore. My deal is keep your nose clean, pay your taxes, live in high integrity, don't be weird and shifty about your life, and all is well. In 2002, I drove across the, was it 2002? No, 2012. I drove across the Peace Arch border crossing to pick up supplies in Seattle, because I make product. And the moment the border guard said to me, "What are you buying?" I said, "I'm picking up some supplies," and I went, damn it, should not have said that. I was traveling with my buddy, and he's a straight, cisgendered, white guy, nice looking enough, very clean cut looking. And when the border guy told us to go and line up in the building in the back, my buddy started to panic. He said, "Dude, you should not have said that you were gonna buy stuff." I said, "Look, I said that, get over it, sit down, shut up." And I figure, he's never ever been to this back part of the building before where every time I cross the border, I always go in. So like I said, it's not a big deal for me, right? In fact, actually once I had asked one of the guards, I said, "So what's your secret?" It's like every day you have a new person to pull aside. It's today Asian Day, tomorrow's gonna be Black People Day, and then maybe if there's some terrorist attack, there'll be like the Muslim Day. Like, what's the deal? So, of course, she never ever told me. She just smiled and laughed. Actually, she actually said, "Government secret, top secret, I can't tell you." So anyway, we get pulled aside, and we're in the lineup. And so we wait for 2 hours. I keep going up to the front because I'm angsty. I have no idea what's going on. And I ask the guy in front, "So what's the deal?" Or I go up, every 20 minutes and I say, "I'm hungry. Can you let me go eat?" Or "May I have some water?" or something. And every time the guy said to me, "Don't worry about it, sir. Just sit down. We'll get to you." So of course, good thing this bigendered, gender fluid, all gendered, whatever, chose to wake up that day looking like a guy. So at least nobody got confused and it didn't get more and more complicated for everybody, okay? So finally the guard calls me over. He says, "Okay, we're gonna look over your van now. Is there anything you want to declare?" So I was like, oh wow, okay, it's getting pretty serious. Okay, fine. I have organic tobacco in a tin with a knife. It's in my luggage. I have some knives and some tools in my glove compartment. And oh yeah, right, I have got my testosterone and syringe in a little tin in my luggage as well, and there's an emergency stash under the passenger seat. The guard says, "Why do you have testosterone?" I said, "Because I'm transgendered, and I need my medication. He says, okay, fine, go sit down. So we're waiting some more, and this is 3 hours into waiting. The guard says now that he has called the sheriff from Blaine. My buddy starts to panic, and he is called in for questioning in the interrogation room. At this point, I am, I love your eyes, by the way, you're like, he's right there with me. My brain is pretty clear. I am, breathing normally, and I am actually just very, very curious. I'm wondering what the hell's going on. I know this has to do with my testosterone, but I really don't know anything else, yeah? My buddy goes in, and he comes back out, and he says, yep, dude, it's about your testosterone. I was like, okay. So he was questioned about that and his relationship to me. It was all fine. He answered well, nothing else going on there. Shortly after, I am called in, and a tall, attractive white guy, the sheriff, looks at me. He says, Tien Neo Eamas, take a seat. I'm going to now read you your rights. So I sit down. He says, I am charging you with the illegal possession of drugs. Blah, 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 a bunch of other things that I don't remember. You now have the right to remain silent. You have the right to an attorney. If you do not have an attorney, we will get one for you. We will appoint one for you. Blah, 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 something in the court of law. So I'm sitting on the bench, and I'm like, wow, that's like word for word from Law and Order, man. Do you understand that, sir? Yes. You mean my testosterone is a drug? Yes, it is. Do you have a prescription? No, I don't, because it's in an ugly bottle, and so I like to put it in a pretty tin. He says, so why do you have testosterone? I said, because I'm transgendered, and if I don't give myself my shots, I will turn back into a girl. Handsome sheriff, his posture shifts. He slouches a little bit over me, and he's a foot away from me. He says, you mean your boobs will grow? So I said, no, silly boy, I got those removed 10 years ago. It's never gonna happen. It's okay. And I smacked him on his thigh. Handsome sheriff breaks out into a grin and starts to laugh, and then he straightens himself and catches himself and starts straight again, right? So 10 feet over by the desk over there, there's 2 other guards, and they're facing us. And they're holding my drugs, my paraphernalia. And I watch them after I say this, and they're both putting their heads down. They're both turning their back towards me. And then you see they're shaking away, right? Handsome says, do you have a prescription? I said, no, I don't. Well, you have to have a prescription all the time, because now in America, you have to always have a prescription on you if you're carrying drugs. I'm like, oh, wow, okay, thank you for telling me. Now I know when I come back to your lovely country, I will make sure I have my prescriptions. He says, okay, fine. Now, so what is in this tin? You've got your testosterone, you've got your syringe, and what is this black bottle? I said, oh, that's my alcohol. He says, why do you have alcohol in a black bottle? I said, because it's prettier to put it in a black bottle than in a brown bottle. He says, okay, why do you have alcohol? I said, so I can put the alcohol on the cotton, and I can wipe my butt and give myself a shot. So once again, there's a shuffle of movement over by the desk. And they're laughing, and Handsome is laughing. He's totally okay, I'm just gonna laugh and have a good time. So I then gave them a basic lesson 101 in transgendered people, and a little bit about our lives. And I said to them, it's 2012. Guys, you must know transgender people by now? Handsome says, no, not really, and I've never interrogated one before. And I looked at the guards, I was like, and you? And they were like, I was like, wow, look, happy day, we all got to learn something new. So by now, everybody's freely laughing, and Handsome says, so unfortunately, I am going to charge you because you were carrying an illegal substance into America. But because you were obviously not aware this is what we were doing, I'm going to give you a court date. You're going to come back in 2 days. You're going to go to Blaine. You're going to get yourself a lawyer. And, most probably this will be okay. But you got to get yourself a lawyer. So then he sets me up on how to find myself a lawyer. And then he says, and we have to confiscate the tin and the drugs. I was like, no, not the tin. Come on, it's my tin. I love my tin. 70s retro tin, especially for my drugs. So I look over pleadingly at the guards who are laughing away. They look at each other, they empty the contents, and they walk over to me and they give me my tin back. And it was actually really sweet because in that moment, they looked at me, they nodded, they gave me eye contact. It was kind of like, thank you. And then they left the room. So I was denied entry into the United States of America that day. We left Vancouver that morning to go have lunch in Seattle, and instead we got turned around and we had dinner in White Rock. The inside of my van was completely flung apart. Everything was everywhere. Boxes, compartments, everything was all over the place. They did, really sweet enough. They did put my smokes back into the tin, into the right compartment in my luggage. It was the only thing that was in place. And that I'm actually, cool, right? It was cool that they were thoughtful about that. So back in Vancouver, I send a short, efficient email to my personal contacts asking for support. And within a few hours, there's a good friend of mine who's a well-known lawyer in Seattle, and she was awesome. She says, okay, fine. If they give you a hard time on Friday, give them the number. I'll sort this all out. And through another contact of mine, this gay lawyer from Blaine offered to take on my case pro bono. And I had two friends come up and help me, drive me down, and I got to get rid of a friend who was not wanting to help me because she did not want to be associated with a criminal. So of course the next day I go back, get my prescriptions from London Drugs, tell them the whole story, blah, 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 blah. Go back to Blaine, and of course everything was handled very smoothly. Judges dropped the case, the court was fine, and everything was expunged from my criminal record. So while I was waiting with the sheriff, though, I did get this one thing for myself, that I thought that if for any reason they did have to strip search me, because, I could be carrying drugs in my other cavities, not just my pretty retro tin. But, I thought if they did decide to strip search me, I'd actually be okay with that. And that thought, when I was sitting in the interrogation room, really, really surprised me. Because as a trans man, and like some of us trans people, we have very rare, unique bodies. And given that we live in the world that we live in right now, where these unique bodies are not seen anywhere, we don't go out in public very much. We don't show off our bodies except to our lovers. And a lot of us end up loathing and hating ourselves. So I'd spent a good 10 years hating this meat suit that I came into Earth with. Even with my surgeries and everything, I just hated it. Self-loathing, fear, embarrassment, all of that stuff was my whole life. So when I got that I had done this work and just loved who I was over 10, 15 years, the fact that they could strip search me all they want, I would be perfectly fine, was a big breakthrough for me to realize that I had really loved myself so much. So my lesson, and a lesson for all of us here, even when in a dire situation, always be committed to joy, light, and humor. That anything is possible when you are coming from your heart and not your noisy head. Now, I never blamed anybody. I did not blame myself. I did not blame the US government or system. They were just doing their job. And me, I was just not being very smart, and I didn't know, right? I also immediately shut down all negative, fear-based, blameful conversations that my friend particularly wanted to have for some reason, but I made sure I was clear of that. And I got present. I got out of my head, and I was speaking human being to human being with the sheriff, with the guards. So I wasn't speaking, person of authority to someone of not. I wasn't speaking to, person in power and a civilian. I wasn't speaking from white guy to person of color or cisgendered guy to trans person. I was speaking soul to soul. So that each of us could actually relate in the amazing, unique people that each of us are with each other. So border guards are discouraged from laughing and being friendly. And if there was another rule that got broken that day, it was that laughter, playfulness, connectedness took place at the Peace Arch border crossing in 2012.
Awesome. Tien Neo Eamas, everyone.